Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. Do I need to repeat myself? Yes, some guy keeps using my name, and I'm sick of it. So I'm going to mock him. The good thing is that there is always so much to mock about Donald and everybody else in his inner circle. It has now unaccountably been 327 days since January 20th, 2025, when the golden age of America began. So we are going to take a look back at week 46. That makes me feel old. Anyway, for the last month or so, the GOP has been begging Donald to stay on message, one of his fortes, and use the new magic word, affordability. They know grocery prices are rising despite his denials. They know families are getting squeezed despite his gaslighting. And they want Donald to sound at least vaguely connected to reality in the weeks before the holidays, because the holidays are going to be rough this year. They set up a big speech for him in Pennsylvania, although I wouldn't say big, because pretty much it looked like they rented out the world's saddest conference room. The location was the Mount Airy Casino Resort in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania. So Donald's team got together and decided that the most appropriate place to go to give a speech on affordability was a casino. Of course, Donald went off message, calling affordability a Democratic con job and denying the fact that affordability is even a word. Then he told the crowd that they are not feeling what they're feeling, that their lived experience is complete and utter nonsense. He went off into spouting wild conspiracy theories. He launched deeply racist tirades about Representative Ilhan Omar and immigrants across the board, especially those from Somalia for some reason. And he generally wandered through every single grievance that lives rent-free in his head. He did have one message for the parents of America, however, who are heading in to Christmas season, the holiday season, in the midst of rising inflation and rising prices.
The one thing you need steel. You can give up certain products. You can give up pencils. Because under the China policy, every child can get 37 pencils. They only need one or two. They don't need that many. But you always need steel. You don't need $37 for your daughter. 2 or 3 is nice, but you don't need $37.
Okay, so a guy who's grifting billions of dollars off the American taxpayer, who's using his position as president of the United States to enrich himself and his awful family, is telling the parents of America that their children don't need pencils. By the way, that was not supposed to be a laugh line, even though the audience didn't seem to understand that. And your children don't need dolls. No. What they need is steel. Anyway, give the guy some coal in his stocking, and I think that would be fair. But remember, nothing bad is happening, at least according to Secretary of Commerce and walking definition of the term failing upward, Howard Lutnick. He agrees with Donald that only good things can happen. Here's what he told CNBC on Thursday.
We should be leading with our front foot. Instead, we're always leaning back as if something bad is happening. We are doing great. Nothing bad is happening. Greatness is happening. We're growing 4% GDP.
So, hey, Mr. Secretary.
Okay. Again, I think we need to consider the frame of reference. Nothing bad is happening for whom and in what context? Well, truth of the matter is nothing bad is happening and only great things are happening to people like Donald and Howard Lutnick. The rich guys who are getting richer. I think Donald may have said something similar back in October with, I don't know, more finesse. That doesn't sound like him. Let's go with stupidity. Remember this?
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.
That's clear. Donald's cabinet insists that even though everything's great and there is literally nothing to see here move along, that relief is on the way. And you wouldn't think, though, that we would need relief if everything's great. Remember the backyard chicken woman? The woman who told us that one way around the problem of higher egg prices is to create chicken coops in our backyards, which again, is difficult for those apartment dwellers among us. That would have been Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, who told the nation earlier this year, just that, combat the rising price of eggs by getting backyard chickens. It was a plan, I guess, but still, prices have been rising across the board, probably because enough people aren't buying chickens and raising them to lay eggs. I don't know. So here's the question, though. Is relief really on the way? Let's take a look at what she told Fox State TV's Larry Kudlow this week.
Gas is down, lumber is down, eggs are down, Larry Kudlow. Really, everything is coming down. But we believe so sincerely. Listen, we're not tone deaf. We know that America, or a lot of Americans at least, are like, well, we're still not feeling the relief. The relief is coming. The structure is there. The one big beautiful bill, tax cuts go into effect. Costs are coming down. It really is a golden age just right around the corner.
Oh, it's right around the corner. I get. See, I mistakenly believed that it was already here because every single person other than her, who clearly didn't get the memo, has been telling us that the golden age is here. And if we don't believe that, then there's something wrong about our perceptions, apparently. But is there anyone else we can blame, even though everything's great? In Donald's regime, there is always somebody to find fault with. Their all-purpose scapegoat has been and continues to be Joe Biden. Yes, Joseph Robinette Biden, who is history's greatest monster and villain, is there for them to pin every single problem of their making on, even though he has not been president of the United States for over 11 months now. They rotate the excuses constantly, though, because, you want to keep things fresh. The most recent villain was the shutdown. But this week, the director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, has a brand new scapegoat to explain the bad jobs numbers. Shockingly, it isn't Biden. Now he says the problem is the payroll surveys. Let's watch as he explains or tries to explain this to Fox's Laura Ingraham.
Now, job openings and layoffs. I know you've seen the numbers.
Right,
the BLS numbers, the layoffs reached 1.9 million. That's the highest since 2023. So what is that? Is that AI? Is that migrants leaving the country? Is that, automation? And is next year's boom in energy facilities and AI build outs, and is that going to be able to really, blunt that effect?
Right. Well, we still have to get the government data that we lost because of the shutdown. And one of the things we're seeing is that payroll surveys, where they call up firms and say, hey, do you have how many people do you have working with you? That they're showing much lower growth than household surveys, where we ask people, do you have a job? And so it could be that what's going on right now is that there's a problem with the way the surveys work. And I'll be able to talk to you in a week or so when we finally get the data we need to assess that.
It's completely adorable that he thinks we're going to believe for a second that this regime is going to release the actual jobs numbers. They wanted those data to be kept from view because the data and the facts are the real enemy here. Oh, and apparently companies that have absolutely no idea how many people they have on their payrolls. Okay, for those keeping score at home, the Trump regime has blamed Joe Biden, at least 95% of the time. They've blamed the shutdown, which they also blame on Democrats, and now they're blaming job surveys. Also, they're blaming the lack of government data, which they are intentionally keeping hidden from us. Got it? Does that make sense? Very consistent. On Sunday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Margaret Brennan that there might yet be another culprit for the affordability crisis. Although I have to be honest, I'm shocked they're still allowed to talk about the affordability crisis, considering Donald says that affordability is a hoax and not even a word. Bessent, however, is blaming the affordability crisis on the media. So let's take a look at what he had to say.
We hear from, for example, the president when he says that affordability is a con job by Democrats. That seems to just not be resonating with consumers that have been polled by CBS. 60% of Americans polled by this network told us President Trump makes prices and inflation sound better than they really are. And his approval rating on the economy is now down to 36% in our latest poll. On inflation, approval is even lower, at 32%. Don't you need to show that you feel the pain?
Well, Margaret, I think the president's frustrated by the media coverage of what's going on.
This is the polling of average
but,
Americans.
Yeah, but I think the average Americans are hearing a lot of it from media coverage. What we're not going to do is say that Americans don't know what they're feeling. We've been working on it every day. I was on your show on March talking about affordability. We've made a lot of gains, but remember, we've got this embedded inflation from the Biden years. The American people don't know how good they have it.
Do you think there is an affordability problem?
Sorry?
You do believe that?
I think the Biden administration created a terror.
No, but now we're nearly 12 months in. You said the president would own the economy at this point.
Okay. So the American people just don't know how good they have it because apparently they're idiots who don't understand how money works. And the media is to blame because the media is reporting on how the American people are handling the affordability crisis, which, according to Besant, is creating the affordability crisis. It is mind-numbing stuff. And anybody paying attention to this should be insulted. Also, the bottom line here is that Donald and anybody in the Trump regime is never responsible for anything. Nothing is ever their fault. That is a great Trump family tradition. And, he comes by it honestly. So thank you so much for watching this week's edition of Trump Trolls Trump. Remember, this is important. When things get bad, always blame somebody else, even and especially if it's your fault. Never take responsibility for anything because that's not what adults do anymore, apparently. That is the moral of the affordability story from an administration with no morals whatsoever. But don't forget, things aren't bad. Even if you think they are, you're an idiot. Things are great. So get with it, get your act together, and stop believing your actual lived experience. What's wrong with you? Anyway, as we close, I want to listen to Donald as he explained on Thursday that things have never been, never, ever in the history of the universe as good as they are right now in this golden age of America. See you next week.
And by the way, the stock market today hit another high. 52 times we hit a high in the 10-month period. That's during my second presidency. And it's been amazing. Nobody's seen anything like it. We had the greatest economy in history in my first term. I think we're blowing it away right now. And again, prices were the highest they ever were. Inflation was the highest in 48 years, or I think ever. They say 48 years. The press says 48 years. I'll accept that, but I think it was the highest inflation we've ever had under the past administration. We had the highest prices. We have high inflation, you have high prices. Prices are coming way down. Energy's coming way down. Gasoline is hitting now $1.99 in a couple of states, and it's way down. Gasoline is way down. And when gasoline and energy comes down, everything follows. But prices are coming down, and we have an unbelievable economy. It's amazing what's happening.
Keyword there, big, unbelievable. Thanks for joining us today for Trump Trolls Trump. We will, of course, be back next week because this shit never ends. See you guys soon. Bye. Please like and share this video with your friends and your enemies. That would be fun for all of us. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Thanks.
Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen.